Welcome back to Mystery Garage. In today's episode, we tackle more rust repair on the Red Rabbit. Welcome back to today's episode. So in the last couple of days, I've been looking over the car and kind of figuring out what I want to do and how far I want to go. It's kind of become a critical point in this build of how far or how show quality do I want to make this car. So, there are some smaller particular rust issues, and I figured, well, if I'm going all this way, I might as well take it to the next level, as most project cars do. So today I think we're going to start off by popping out the glass, because along the front trim of the windshield there is a little bit of rust, and I want to see just how far that goes. And I figured if I'm taking out one piece of glass, I might as well take out the rest, and that way we can paint the shell with no windows in the car. So let's get to work. Okay, now one of the pledges I said to myself when I first started this channel was I was never going to make it a how-to. So this channel isn't, or this part of this episode isn't a how-to on how to take windows out. However, if you do want to learn how to take them out, I'm not a window guy by any means, but I thought I'd show you out. If you have your own Mk1 and you want to take the windows off, I figured I'd show you what to do. So what I do is I start by finding this little locator here. This is where the two seams of this trim come together. You can see this used to be, at some point, it used to be chrome, and now it's all kind of worn off. So these have seen better days, but this connector piece here is still stainless steel because it was used to cover off where the two trims meet. So this plastic piece is shoved into the trim all the way around. And so what I start by doing is pulling it out. And really I can take windows out of these cars with just a few flathead screwdrivers. I find this tool is just a bent screwdriver. It's probably, to be honest, from IKEA or something, but it's got the little double-ended. I find the fact that this one's bent really helpful in getting these trims out, as well as helping pull the windshield out. It's a little easier to use than these, but we'll start to go through the process of me pulling it out. So first, I take out this whole trim ring, and then I'll show you where we're at after that. Okay, so once this trim is out, there's two ways we can go about it. One, you can take a straight edge or like a knife, box cutter, and you can stick it in there and you can actually cut this part. So what happens is this overlap piece that's in the bottom here will actually get cut off, and then the window just pops out. This particular window seal is actually in decent shape. It's not incredible shape, but I actually might try and save this. And the way to save it is you can go on the inside of the car and you can fold out the windshield gasket, and then you can just press the window and the window will actually come out with the gasket on. So I'm going to try with this particular window to do that. If I don't have to ruin this gasket, I probably won't. So I'm going to try that method first. If it ends up seeing ripping or tearing because it's dry, then I might just resort to cutting it out. Cutting it out, the only way you'd want to do that is just because you'd have no potential of losing the glass. Just so we're all clear, this glass, sometimes in this process you can shatter it. You want to be real careful, especially if you're putting sharp metal edges up against the edge of the glass. The potential there is that you could shatter the glass. So first I'm just going to try and pop it out from the inside, and we'll see how that goes. Okay, so I stuck this tool inside, and I've gotten the bottom part of this part out. Now if you just press on the glass, weirdly enough, the whole thing will slowly, as long as you do it carefully, will pop right out. There we go. Okay, now that I've taken out that window, I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of the car. I'm actually not going to keep the seal on the front window because I looked at it and it's really dried up and cracked already. So that particular one I'll be cutting. But again, I can just use a straight edge along the front edge of the glass, free up all the gasket, and then you can just push the window up. So here we go, let's get to work. Okay, all the windows are out of the car now. So you can see all the way around the car here. Gotten every window out, including the rear glass. So the whole reason I did this glass removal was because of this rust. And we talked about this last episode. I wanted to get in there and fix it. And then as I started looking along the windshield edge, I realized there was a bit of rust here. Now you have to remember that the gasket covered like this. So all that showed was surface rust. So my concern was if I ever went to repaint the car, which I'm going to, shout out to Flash VM, by the way, my buddy Aaron, who's going to paint this car for me when I get it ready, is this particular portion here was covered. So I was like, well, if I'm going to paint this car, you know, what if it's worse underneath, or what if it bubbles up after we paint it, and it would suck to have spent the money and the time to paint the whole car and then have an issue. So I might as well see it through. So I decided to pull all the windows out. When you look at this issue closer, this glass at some point was replaced, and somebody knew that this was a rust hole, at least the window guy did, and they put extra goop here, and the goop filled the hole. And if you go in behind my finger, you can see my fingers in now in behind, the goop is actually deeper and goes into the hole, so you can see that. So they meant to cover it up. So had I have not taken the window out, I had have just left the window, and I would have sanded this, because that's all as far as the seal showed me. I would have sanded it real clean, and then I would have just painted over top of it. And within months, maybe a year, I guarantee you this would have crept into the paint and started bubbling the paint here, and that rust would have continued to grow. So stuff like that. So between this portion and that portion is all the reason in the world to have taken the windshield out. So when it comes to that, you know, you walk over to the other side, which didn't seem to have any issue last time with the seal in, because the seal covered, you can see the line of the seal covered pretty much all of this. So I didn't actually see that. Now that I look at it, there's a hole here, there's a hole here. So, you know, it's crisp all the rest of the way, but except for this little part, which actually, this is the one part I did see last time when I talked about that last episode. There's actually no hole here, so this is the smallest of the issues. But nevertheless, we have this now, and we have this part, and we have the other side that we talked about, that and the port over there. So now we're looking at doing a full, you know, a full replacement of this particular portion, which is perfect because, or not perfect, which works out well because I have this portion on this car that's all in really good shape. So I can definitely take this whole piece off and then replace it up here with this whole piece. So in order to do this properly and get in there and weld and cut and all that sort of stuff, we got to take out this dash. So next job, dash removal. There we go. Dash is out. Okay, so now that we've gotten a good idea of what's going on here, it's time to turn our eyes over to this cut. Now, differently than I did with the front cut of this car, or sorry, the front end of this car, what I'm gonna do actually first is I'm gonna start by taking this scuttle off. Now, in order to do that, I'm gonna try and maintain as much of it as possible, just so I know when it comes to putting it onto the Rabbit, kind of what I might need to remove off of that car. So I'm gonna work the opposite. I'm gonna first do this cut first, and then I'm gonna do the car after. So as you can see right here, there's a few spot welds. So I drill out these spot welds, and then I'll make some cuts, and we'll remove this, and I'll chime back in when the time comes. The one thing to notice here is this windshield edge that's all along here. I'm gonna try and maintain that because I wanna make the welds this lip, when I weld it back onto the other car, I'm gonna weld all along this lip. In this corner, I'm gonna weld all along here to save all that. And then there is a weld, hopefully you can see that. There's a weld that's right here that goes up this part to maintain this tray. So we'll do all that. Anyway, let me get to work and we'll go from there. All right, that wasn't fun, but let's take a look at what I did. So, you can see in here that I drilled out all of the pinch welds. Now you can get a pinch weld drill bit that just takes out the level and doesn't drill right through, but because I'm not gonna be using the rest of this front cut, obviously, I just drilled right through. So then what I did is, you didn't have to make that cut, by the way. I just did that by accident, but don't worry about that. So then I went and drilled through, and then there was that weld here that I cut through, and then I cut, hopefully you can see that, I cut up through the, there we go. I cut up through that pillar, keeping this rain gutter basically on this piece, because I don't know if I want to use this as my weld seam or what. I haven't figured that out quite yet. And then what I did is, this is going to be hard to see, but here's the window pinch weld, goes all along the front. So what I did is I just went underneath it and I cut up with that's not really showing up very well. The lighting's terrible. There we go. So I just cut underneath that. This is the pinch weld here. I just cut underneath it all the way over, and then I did the same cut right up through that part, and then right down through the other side, and then same thing, drilled out all the pinch welds. So now you put a chisel in here and you just hammer it separate. Now this whole piece in the front, there's obviously nothing to do here because this is, you can wrap underneath. And if you take a look at what I got here, sorry, let it focus. Now that I've done that, I can just lift it off. And now what I'm left with is that scuttle piece. Now, I understand there's some people watching this that say, well, you can just buy that. Yeah, I could have, but I had this front cut, and I don't know, might as well just use this, save some money. It's kind of what this channel is all about a little bit as well, is budget. Now if you look over the other side, you can see the holes I drilled. You can see the edge here. Lighting's terrible, there we go. The edge I cut, so I've retained that pinch weld. So I'll grind that whole thing down so it's nice and clean all the way to the bottom. And I gotta get rid of that inside piece, which I'll cut out now. That's easier to deal with. And I'll do the same with this portion here. I'll cut out that little piece. But what I'm left with is a real clean scuttle. So, obviously eventually, this is going to replace that part. And then we're going to get away with all of these seam edges. Oh, I actually drilled out all the pinch welds here too for when I weld it back. So what's going to happen now is I'm going to do the opposite with this one. I'm going to cut, retaining this pinch weld to the car. I'm going to cut along the top here all the way across. So that way what I'm going to left with is this pinch weld resting against this pinch weld seam, and I can weld through my holes into this, and I can even make a couple more as I go, and that will complete this strong weld along the front. And when it comes over to this portion here, I'll clean this right down. This part I'll cut in this edge, retaining this pinch weld. Cut all like that, cut up here. And I haven't quite figured out how I want to terminate this portion. I'm gonna actually just cut across here and leave the rain gutter alone, because it's gonna be a really hard one to, hold on, let me move the camera, to weld in here, or even to grind and clean that up. So I might wanna just scoot across this portion here and figure out what I wanna do there. So not there yet, but you can see how that'll line right up real nice, and everything will kind of go together, and I'll be able to get rid of all of this and all of this. So leave it to me again, and I'll come back in a little bit with this red one cut out. All right, here we go. Okay, let's take a look at what I've done. So, just as I had mentioned, I cut, you can see that, I cut right here, all along the side. I made a cut here. I just picked a transition right here, and this isn't necessarily where I'm gonna stick. I'm gonna make a better line across the top, but I just wanted to cut this. Then, went along the inside of the scuttle, right here, and cut all the way along, retaining this pinch weld seam like I mentioned, all the way along. Go over to the other side real quick. And same deal. Cut here, all along here, drilled out a pinch weld there, and cut along here. Now, this piece, as you can see, comes off. Now the interesting part, as you can see underneath where the rust was, it was only starting to get worse. So had I painted this car, you can see where that glue now came through, that they knew there was a hole there. But you can see how bad that is getting, that if I would have let this just sit, that only would have gotten worse. It would have ruined my new paint job. So it is good to spend the time to do this. Now you can see here where the rust concerns were before. I'll clean all this edge up here with a a grinding wheel, and we'll clean all this rust up here. And then we'll, my intention is to coat all this once I get it real nice and clean with like a kind of a rust inhibitor type. And then I'll grind all this down all the way across. And we'll repeat the same process on this side, give it a good cleanup. And once that's all done, you'll really start to see that this was a job we should have tackled. And I don't regret this for a second. So I'm not going to spend the whole time on this channel, you know, doing rust repair. I just, you know, it gets kind of boring, but you get the idea. You know, we've done this particular portion by cutting and tracing it out and making it fit. I've now done the same with this portion. I'll do the same with that rust hole right there. I do have a bit here and a bit here, which isn't through, but I also have, I don't know if you can see that, there's a dent right here. And I have a replacement panel for this section here. So I'm also gonna do exactly the same here, but I'm not gonna film all that because you guys get the idea. And as you can see, the rest of the car, pinch welds in all of the windows, oops, missed that. All the windows are still in great shape, no rust. There is one particular spot in the back window right here, but I'm just gonna clean this up and really take a look at it and see if that's worth worrying about. Because on the inside of the seam, it's all really good and there's no rust right through. That's just paint chipping off. So I think I can clean that up and coat that as well. This side's, you know, still mint. Just a bit of paint chipping off again. Nothing to worry about on this window either. So all the rust that's been tackled is in this scuttle panel and the front section. And all in all, you know, I'm pretty happy. So before we wrap this episode up, I'm just gonna quickly throw on the new one, kind of mark some lines on the edges of where I wanna make the transitions and show you guys how it fits up. After a lot of cleanup, here's where we are. Still a lot more cleanup to go, but you can see, maybe as we go like that, you can see I've got everything kind of cleaned up. I've got the blend pretty decent. You know, this is a little bit bigger gap than I would like to have, but it kind of, I needed to figure out where everything was, and I just made a little bit of an error there. But you can see on the other side, it's a lot tighter gap. There's a bit of an overlap issue there because the window for some reason seems to be very slightly smaller, but I'll address that when it comes to the metalworking portion of it. But as you can see here, it all ties in really well. We'll end up putting that factory weld back, weld back in all these spot welds points as we go. You can see the window edge is real nice. So there we have it. Like I said, same deal over here. We will drill all that and weld all here. Sorry, weld all these spot welds, weld up this. But first I'm gonna take this off, and I wanna paint inside all the edges and stuff with a rust prevention to make sure that this never grows back. So that's about it for this job. Like I said, we're gonna be doing a little bit more down here, and we'll address that rust issue and that rust issue and that dent that's right here. But other than that, that's about it that this car has. Then we'll work on cleaning the bay a little bit, building the engine, and then prepping the rest of the car, getting ready for paint. We'll probably be, I don't know, it's hard to say how far away from paint we are, but there's a lot of other little issues we want to deal with in the car. I want to address all the interior, make sure the interior is all in good form. We're going to do all the roof, floor, rust prevention on the floor, cleaning all that up and getting all that ready. We'll do a little bit of rust prevention right here once we get that all cleaned up. And we still need to take apart the back of the car, you know, tail lights and trim and all that sort of stuff. We still have to take out the rear axle and prep it for disc brakes, take out the exhaust that's remaining there, and strip the rest of the chassis for paint, as well as kind of starting to address a lot of this stuff to start building the car back up. Clean up a rear beam, put all the new brake components on that. We'll deal with all the front suspension components, cleaning all those and getting those ready to put back on. All kinds of stuff going to start happening pretty soon. And just so you guys know, my eventual target for this car, like I said, is to clean it up and get it all, you know, looking very classic and very clean. The goal is to get there. All right, guys, that's about it for this week. Thanks very much for watching. Again, in the comments, let me know if more rust repair on this car is something you want to see, or you'd like me to skip through it. Actually, let's do this. 3 options. Option number 1, watch more rust repair on this car and see everything I have to do. There's only one more real area to address before we start prepping the under coating area, rust prevention, and welding this stuff back in. So option number 1 is continue to watch me fix all the remaining part of the rust. Option number 2 is to move on to something else for now, and then maybe come back to another rust episode a little bit later on. Or number 3 is have me do the rust off camera now that you guys have seen the process 2 episodes in a row, and we'll go on to other things. So again, number 1, have me show you all the rust repair on the car. 2, have me move on and show you the rust repair later on after we tackle some other issues. Or option 3, skip all that rust stuff because we've seen enough of it and move on to other things. All right, guys, thanks very much. Don't forget to tap that bell. Don't forget to subscribe, throw in some comments, and appreciate it. Till next time, guys, take care.